The first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the Activision Blizzard buyout. It was just announced today on Tuesday that the EU is launching a more in-depth probe on the buyout with concerns of anti-competitiveness when it comes to the buyout itself. This is after Sony and Jim Ryan have been sending letters and feelers over to the EU and to other countries and governing bodies about their concerns over Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and what it could mean for Call of Duty and for the rest of the gaming industry if Call of Duty were to become supposedly exclusive to Xbox at that point. Zero, I mean, this is not really news. We were kind of expecting this, but what are your thoughts on the EU launching a more in-depth probe on the Activision Blizzard buyout?
It's kind of interesting that the EU's probing a little harder because I believe it's Saudi Arabia also kind of came to the same conclusion as Brazil, which was basically telling Sony, hey, get off your ass and leverage your own brands because Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and getting a hold of Call of Duty doesn't mean it's the end of the world for you. So kind of interesting that you've got two countries who've kind of ruled against Sony's complaints and everything. And the details, at least in the US, seem hazy. I can't seem to find hide nor hair on if people seem to think that the deal is going to be a slam dunk in the US or not. It's just been really hard to kind of find a definitive answer on that. So it's a bit interesting to see the EU kind of probe a little harder and go, no, we need to investigate this much further. So I'm definitely interested to see how this pans out because I imagine that there is some sort of breakage clause in case of a third party that isn't either Microsoft or Activision ends up breaking this deal. And I think I've heard some rumors and speculations that the contract stipulates that in the event that a third party breaks up the deal, either through legal processes or regulatory processes, that technically Xbox would get a real sweet payout, somewhere to the tune of like $100 million, which would be one hell of a war chest of money for Microsoft to go and buy up a bunch more studios instead. So, yeah. And I've seen some people speculating and going, yeah, just you would think Sony would be one to not want that sort of a scenario to happen where they can just go waltz around the world with $100 million and start buying up studios that maybe Sony's been a little bit hesitant to make a solid decision on. I've seen some people speculating that the money could be used for some sort of crazy pie in the sky scenario of Microsoft somehow buying out Square Enix.
That would be the ultimate pull your dick out move. And goes, oh yeah, thwap. Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusive to Xbox. But yeah,
I would. I could just see just people who are overly invested on the Sony camp just losing their minds at a pie in the sky scenario like that.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting in the next few months. Supposedly, the U.S. was this was reported, this has not been a confirmed thing, that by the end of this month, they're going to discuss their thoughts on the Activision Blizzard buyout. And I've said it before, if the U.S. decides it's okay, I think all the other countries and regulating bodies are just going to follow suit and go, okay, well, if the U.S. doesn't care, why should we? And honestly, I am of the opinion that this probably should go through. Even if, and I've even said this before, even if Microsoft decides to take Call of Duty and put it on their consoles only, which more and more I'm thinking is probably not a good move. Even if they did that, EA has Battlefield. Sony can make their own games like that. And Call of Duty, even though it makes blockbuster sales at this point, I mean, it's not every game that makes those blockbuster sales. I mean, Vanguard did not do as well as previous years had. World War II hasn't. Call of Duty Ghosts didn't do very well. It all is contingent on the quality of the game as to whether it makes giant sales. And that's how it really should be at this point. So I I have zero issues with Xbox and Microsoft owning Activision Blizzard. I really don't. To me, I think you mentioned this as well, Sony poking the bear and trying to stop this from happening is just going to make things worse if it turns out that it succeeds. Because if it does succeed and the regulating bodies go, oh yeah, we can't have this, we're going to block the sale. Yeah, Sony might be excited and be like be clapping for like a few days, going, "Oh wow, yeah, we won that one." Until let's say Activision Blizzard says, "Yeah, we're not going to do anything exclusive with you anymore," or Microsoft then buys a bunch of studios. Like I don't know if they own Sucker Punch, but if they own Sucker Punch, I can see them saying, "Okay, let's take one of the studios that they get and we'll just buy them and see how they do from there." Or if they decide, "Hey, FromSoft, how would you like to be part of the Microsoft brand? Here's $1 billion. Yes, sir. Thank you." That I can see them getting like really catty after this. So I'm of the belief of what we've talked about as well with other people. If this goes down and it doesn't work, I can see this biting Sony in the ass later on down the road. So I think deep down, they should probably hope this goes through. And even if it does, Microsoft has said ad nauseum, we're not making a Call of Duty exclusive. We're not. Minecraft is one of our biggest games that we have on there, and it's not exclusive to any console. We have no problem making it non-exclusive. So, yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand anymore what the deal is. And they could pull it, but even if they do, at this point, I don't care. It's fine. Like they can own it. It's not going to make that big of a deal, especially in a creative medium where a brand new game could outsell an established game if the game is good enough. I mean, seriously, like I'm getting more annoyed by the story than anything now. But because at this point, it's just like, good God, can we just get this over with? But yeah, I'm now of the belief now that this isn't that big of a deal. It should go through. And if it doesn't, it's going to hurt Sony more than anybody, because then you're just now making a big multi-billion-dollar company really angry and wanting to spend gobs of money to now price you out of the entire console. So, yeah.
I think I'll be interested to see how this concludes out, because honestly, I still stand by my position that it's likely in Sony's best interest to shut the fuck up and just let whatever happen.
Yeah.
Because if they push too hard and regulators just go, "Oh yeah, hey Sony, yeah, you are right. This deal looks bad. We shouldn't do it," and Microsoft then ends up pocketing whatever the third-party breakage clause on their contract is, then that's one hell of a war chest. I mean, we've seen what companies with a large war chest of money can do. I mean, look at Epic with the Epic Store and Tencent giving them a war chest to basically just buy games outright and just go, yeah, only way you can get it is on the Epic Store. And of course, just being able to hold stuff over Steam's head to say, you might be the biggest store, but we've got the one hot meta game that everyone's talking about. So
yeah.
So just Microsoft could easily do the same sort of turnabout play with $100 million or however much money that breakage clause is. I'd have to review that contract again because I think it's publicly available. So, but yeah, I would imagine that there's probably a contingency for a scenario where third-party legal or regulatory processes end up breaking the deal.
I also think that Sony isn't thinking too far ahead in the future here. They're probably thinking right now that Phil Spencer is what you would call, I would say, a weak leader, somebody who does not want to be combative, does not want to fight, does not want to, be somebody that will want to butt heads with other businesses. He would rather be the mediator. He would rather be somebody who wants to collaborate more than compete. And I think they're trying to take advantage of that to a certain extent. Because he is not that type of person, or he's not governing himself as that they're trying to take advantage of that to a certain extent. That does not mean Phil Spencer is going to be in that role for another 10 or 20 years. I could see Phil Spencer if Xbox gets their act together and gets really good games coming out. What if, like, if Halo Infinite gets suddenly better, or Fable does incredible sales, or Avowed does really well, or Perfect Dark releases and it becomes fantastic. You know Phil Spencer is going to want to say, hey, I've done all of this for the Xbox brand. I think it's time for me to move up. And either he decides to move up in Microsoft and takes a higher role, or he steps down and goes somewhere else to get a better job. That's always possible. And then what's the next leader going to do? He's going to do the exact opposite of what Phil Spencer is doing. And he's going to want to be combative. He wants to go for the throat. He wants to go and screw everyone to the ground who went against us. And that will mean to kill Sony and the PlayStation. You're just setting yourself up for that specific thing to happen at that point. I'm betting their belief is, as long as Phil Spencer is the leader on Xbox and the leader of Microsoft in the gaming division, we don't have to worry about them fighting back. They'll want to be too conciliatory. Once you get a new leader there, that all changes. That always changes with new leadership. You very rarely have someone leave and then have a leader come in and say, I'm just going to do exactly what that leader did, and have them succeed. That's bad leadership. That's not going to work. They'll want to put a mark on their time as leader, so they will do something different to differentiate themselves from the other person. Or they'll do what's best for their company, and that might just be to be more combative. So again, yeah, they're poking the bear, and they think they're not going to get bitten when they attack. And I think maybe not now it won't, but as Microsoft becomes a bigger and bigger company in other avenues, it might hurt Sony in the end, big time, especially if new leadership comes up. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.